I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is obviously the double feature, so here, let me get out just the one movie I'm reviewing. I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is a horror film that came out in 1997, and it's starring Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sara Michelle Gellar, and Ryan Philippe. And the plot of this movie is we have these four kids. They're seniors and they're about to go into college, so this is like their last summer, their last night to kind of hang out and have fun. Sara Michelle Gellar is having this like beauty pageant thing and she wins it, and so they're all celebrating, partying and drinking. Ryan Philippe gets completely trashed, and so Freddie Prinze Jr. drives the car, and as they're driving, Ryan Phillippe's just going nuts. With his alcohol, spills the bottle, causes them to hit something. They don't know what it is yet until when they get out and they realize they hit a person.
What was that?
I don't know.
Oh my god!
What the hell was he doing out here? It's manslaughter. We're gonna fry no matter who takes the fall. Then we dump the body.
And they make a pact. They're like, we have to keep this a secret. We're not even gonna bring this up ever. And Ryan Philippe basically forces them all to make it. Jennifer Love Hewitt's against it, but he makes her do it. And then you jump a year later, they come back from college. Jennifer Love Hewitt comes back home looking really haggard and like death, as her own mom said. And she gets a letter. She goes to all of her old friends, most of them she's not even friends with anymore.
Somebody sent this to me. Oh my god.
Come on, Julie. How do you know this is even related? You did a lot of things last summer.
Yeah, well, only one murder comes to mind.
We didn't murder anyone.
And they eventually realize that someone is fucking with them. And not only is he just fucking with them, but he wants to kill them. And you know what, guys? I really, really enjoy this movie. I think if I were to make a top whatever of my favorite horror movies, this would definitely be up there on the list. I don't know if it's for the fact that I first watched this movie when it first came out and I was like 8 or 9 years old, so it was just easy for me to like it then, and I was like in love with Jennifer Love Hewitt. She was like the first actress I ever had the hots for. Or if it was just because even when, watching it now that I'm older, I still get into it. I still enjoy the plot. Jennifer Love Hewitt plays Julie, and I like how at the beginning of the movie her character is like this smart-ass, know-it-all type of girl. There's even a moment where Freddie Prinze Jr. is trying to correct them on this story that they're telling about this man with like a hook for a hand. And Freddie Prinze Jr. is like, no, this is how it really happened in real life. And they're like, dude, it didn't fucking happen in real life. And she's like, yeah, it's just a story that they made up to make girls not want to have sex. And Freddie Prinze Jr. says to her like, yeah, well, we all know how afraid I am of your IQ there, honey. Just, I love the fact that he calls her out on her bullshit. And from that point on, that's when I really like Freddie Prinze Jr. and his character. I know some people don't like Freddie Prinze Jr. or they say he's a bad actor. I'm not saying he's the greatest actor, and it's probably even more so when he's in such a great cast as this movie. Everyone's really on their game in this movie. But I still like him. I still think he works.
A toast to us.
Sara Michelle Gellar plays Helen, and you see her at the beginning and she's like that beauty pageant winner and she's that typical hot chick. But I love how after the year goes by and Jennifer Love Hewitt comes back and she tries to meet up with everyone to ask them and tell them about this letter, she runs into her. She finds out that she wanted to go to New York to further her career, but it just didn't work out, so she's back in town and she's working at this little store and she's really not making anything for herself, and she sort of failed, And I like that. I like the fact that here's a girl who was the popular girl, the hot girl who looked like she would have everything going for her, only to find out that it's not working out for her. And then you see the shattered relationship, friendship between her and Jennifer Love Hewitt, and how they used to be best friends. They've grown apart, and they don't spend a whole lot of time with it, but I just love the idea of them dealing with that, and her saying, "I miss you as a friend." Jennifer Love Hewitt kind of gives her the cold shoulder. Helen's sister is also like a real bitch to her. I don't know why, but the whole movie she's like throwing her insults left and right. And Freddie Prinze Jr., I love the scene where, you know, all the crazy shit's happening to all of them, and Freddie Prinze Jr., like, they start to think that maybe he has something to do with this. Maybe he's the guy, and they go up to him, they confront him, and he's like, "Hey, he's after me too. I got a letter." And Ryan Phillippe's like, "Oh, you got a letter. Well, Helen gets her hair chopped off, Julie gets a body in the trunk with fucking crabs, and I get run over by a car. And you get a fucking letter? Yeah, that's balanced." And that brings me to Ryan Phillippe as Barry. I would say Ryan Phillippe is the best actor in this movie. He really carries his character just about as good as anyone else could. He's so into it, especially at the beginning where he's pissed off and he's admittedly afraid and scared when they hit this guy on the road, and he gives that whole like, "What are we gonna do? We we can't go to the cops. We'll be dead. We have our scholarships to college." He's like, "If we go to the cops, we're fucked. You can kiss all that goodbye." And he's panicking, and he's just trying to get out of it. And even with his good acting, I just love the premise of this movie, where it's like, what would you do in that situation? You're with your friends, you're young, you have scholarships to college. Would you be willing to risk that by going to the cops and doing the right thing? Or would you try to save your own ass? And then say, if you want to do the right thing, if you want to be like Julie and you want to go to the cops, but all your friends don't want to do it, it's like, well, that's when you realize who your friends truly are, and that's sort of why she distances herself from them a year later. I also love the scene when Jennifer Love Hewitt flips out. It's obviously the famous scene in line from this movie where Jennifer Love Hewitt's just like, "What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?"
Don't you see? He's got us now. This is exactly what he wants. He's just out there and he's watching us and waiting.
You have a little cameo with Anne Heche. She plays the sister of David Egan. She's kind of creepy too. You have Max, the dude from Roseanne. Yeah, Max, he has a crush on Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I love how they pretty much just don't like him and they fuck with him and think he's like a piece of shit. And there's no real blood in this movie. Like, okay, granted, there's some scenes where there's blood, but I feel like overall it's not a bloody, gory movie. Not as much as you would think for a rated R horror movie. I think what I like about it is that there are some people who get killed in bloody, vicious type ways, but when it comes to the main cast, when the main cast does get killed off, and some of them do get killed off, they don't really die in a real bloody way, because you care more about them, and I like that. I like that their deaths don't really have to be this big bloody spectacle. It's more emotional watching them die. The scene with Sara Michelle Gellar being chased by the killer, and just that whole long sequence, it goes on for a good amount of time, and I've probably never rooted for a female character more during that chain of events. I love that this movie is based around the 4th of July. It's a horror movie that you probably want to watch on the 4th of July just because of that.
It's July 4th. This is his day. Whatever he has planned is going to happen today unless we stop it.
Towards the end of the movie, when you do find out who the killer is and the whole backstory, I enjoy it. I know that it could probably be a little bit confusing or a little bit convoluted where you don't really care enough to follow along. There's a lot more going on with this plot. It's a little bit more complicated than you would expect from a horror movie like this, and I can respect it and appreciate it for that. So guys, if you couldn't tell, I'm praising this movie like crazy. I love almost everything about it. I really can't think of too many complaints I have for it. I love the cast, Jennifer Love Hewitt, of course, fell in love with her, she's so hot. Sara Michelle Gellar. I like her. They're both, two of these girls, they're both like great screamers, great girls for a horror movie. Sara Michelle Gellar with the scene when she gets her hair cut off. I love a lot of these creepy moments, creepy scenes. I love how the killer just doesn't go on like a killing spree and kills everyone in the sights. For the most part, I like how for the most part he's mostly fucking with them. And he's scaring them, he's taunting them, and he's letting all these events build up to his big plan, which is the 4th of July. Great horror movie. If you haven't seen it, then what the fuck are you waiting for? Literally. Check it out. And if you have seen it, let me know in the comments below what you think, if you like it just as much as I do. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Peace, subscribe, and later!